Hey guys, what's going on? Dallas Keithley here, and I am joined today by Tibbett. What is your title there at LBL?
I am a regional marketing director for Adams Life Brokerage, actually.
Adams Life,
I
yeah,
don't work
okay,
for Liberty Bankers Life, but I am one of their top representatives outside of their home office.
okay, perfect. And so we have worked, man, we've worked together now for quite some time. I know at least I think I met you 2 or 3 years ago at 8% Nation, and got to work with you a little bit. And I'll tell you guys the reason I wanted to have Tibbett on. I love LBL's product. I love the ease of it. I used to write mostly another company. I won't say who it was, but I used to write mostly another company. The last few years, I've went more toward, and I'm telling you guys, if I have a new agent that comes on, I love LBL. The first reason is I love y'all's just in. So if I bring an agent on, I can have LBL. If I bring him on Monday, I can usually have them selling LBL by Friday, and so as long as they're licensed and all that. And you guys are one of the few rare companies, Liberty Bankers is one of the few rare companies that actually has that offer. And so to me, in the final expense world, a lot of times it's because we want quick money, right? And so when it comes to that, I love that you guys have that just in time. So
It's very beneficial. It makes it so that an agent who's hungry and wants to really hit the ground running can definitely do so.
yeah, absolutely. So now, not only that, but now being just in time, correct me if I'm wrong, but with LBL, you have to write your first application over the phone, correct?
That's correct. Your very first app must be done via their phone submission process.
Mhm. And really, that's what we kind of want to go over today is how to get that started. Now, once you get your first one done, then you'll get a welcome email saying, welcome to Liberty Bankers Life. And then you will get a link to the portal. And their portal is awesome as well. I love they have an e-app on the portal. There's even a demo right there. First thing you see when you click on the final expense, it says demo of e-app here. So you click that and it's so easy. A Dallas could do it, right? So
Yeah, that's right. That's right, Dallas.
Yeah. So let's say brand new agent just comes on. They want to go do their first e-app, right? The one thing, let me start with this in just a bit. But really, if you fully fill out that e-application app packet, now you don't have to submit the application. It's just an application packet that helps you get ready for the phone call. If you fully fill that out, there really isn't anything that you're not going to be ready for when it comes to the phone call, correct?
That's true. Yes.
Okay. So let me share this screen here. And I'm going to share this with you guys so that you can see the application here. Okay. So, all right. So you can see this now. Now, you guys can see here, Tibbett, kind of run us through this thing and, the steps, how you complete it. And I'll jump in because I know more than one way to skin a cat, but you've been doing this longer than me. So kind of run through it here.
So, of course, this is the first page. It actually shows you all of the instructions. And at the bottom of it, it gives you their hours of operation and gives you the phone number to call for the actual processing of the application. If you'll keep scrolling, you'll notice that there's a lot of area there to enter in all of the client's information. Again, you're going to want to get all of this long before you make the phone call to the carrier. It makes it easier for the interview process itself. They're going to ask you about beneficiary, everything anyway in the phone call. They ask you, the agent, that information along with their banking, their address, their phone number, all of the other information they ask you. And if you'll scroll down there just a little bit further to the health questions, it's really kind of the most important thing to take a look at there. If you look at that health questionnaire, it's broken up. Go ahead, Dallas. Sorry.
No, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it's broken up into 3 boxes. You can see its design and layout. It's broken up into 3 boxes. The top box, if you get a yes in the top box, just do not submit the app at all. You want to look at probably a guaranteed issue carrier for your client. If you get a yes in the second box, You might want to offer them the modified whole life because that's what they would offer from the carrier, a modified whole life. You might want to see how your client looks at that. Otherwise, you also might want to look at a different carrier first day option.
Now, the modified for you guys, that is modified is going to be, is it a 3-year wait with Liberty Bankers?
No, it's a 2-year wait with Liberty
2-year,
Bank.
okay.
They pay 110% basically for the first 2 years, and then it's a full premium beginning of year 3.
Okay. Now, this third box, even if they answer yes in the third box, they can still get day one coverage, correct? It's just
They
gonna be
will
on a
still be-
standard.
Yes, sir. They will still be day one if they answer yes in that third box, and that's correct. It's a standard rate. There's a couple of little caveats, though. I just need everybody to understand. When you're going through this application, you are more than likely going to be asking them, I hope you're asking them about their medications that they take. You have to ask everyone about their meds. The carrier, they look at the number of medications that the client takes per health condition, and they weigh that into their underwriting decision. So as you're going through this application, you'll have the likelihood a lot of getting all no's answered on the application itself. However, when you're asking your client about medications that they take, they may tell you that they take 4 or 5 different meds for a couple of different things here and there that are not causing a yes answer on the app. You want to count the number of meds that they take for one thing. So if they take 3 medications for high blood pressure, you're going to want to make sure to actually quote that at a standard rate. The carrier will push that client to a standard rate. If they take 5 medications for one health condition that's a no on the application, they're probably going to offer them a modified whole life policy. So keep that in mind when you're going through as well.
And I'll tell you too, I learned long ago, never ask a senior, how's your health? Because you're either going to get one of 2 people. You're going to get the eternal optimist that says, you know, as soon as they get this cancer figured out and I get my new heart, I'm in good shape. Or
That's right.
You're going to get the pessimist that says, oh man, I went to the doctor last week and I got to start taking a blood pressure med. And he said for me to start taking a vitamin as well. So the end is near, you know? So
That's right.
I always ask them, hey, instead of how's your health, I always go with what medications are you on?
That's
And
right.
like, for example, I was just talking to a gentleman before I got on this call. He said, yeah, I've been taking blood pressure for a long time. And he thought of that as a bad thing. Really, in an underwriter's eyes, that's a good thing. The longer a medication has been taken and the longer it hasn't changed, that's a good thing because they want to see that stability. And usually when a person's like saying, well, I take 4 or 5 meds, it's because they can't figure out what is going to keep that blood pressure stable. And so, yeah, but good point there on the meds. So, right. I'll also say here too, I always listen to how a person answers these questions, right? Because if we're not worried about it, we just quickly answer no, right? So if I get down in here and I'm going through, and what's nice, guys, is whenever you do make the phone call, this is exactly the wording that they're going to use for the health questions, right? So if I'm going along and I say in the last 2 years, have you had stroke? No. Lymphoma, leukemia? No. But then I get down here to complications of diabetes and they go, no, I'm going to camp there a minute, right? Because there's something there. And what they'll do is they'll tell me no, but then when they get on the phone with the underwriter, they're going to say, actually, I have had diabetes and yada, 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 right? I want to get it all out in the open ahead of time, right? So,
That's right. Yeah. So I usually will tell my clients, these carriers, especially this carrier, is incredibly literal about the way they want to hear the answers answered or the questions answered. They want to hear literally a yes or a no. And so when you hesitate with the call on the carrier, a lot of times that can open you up for further scrutiny while you're talking to them. And that can also keep you from getting some coverage in some cases.
Right. And I'll tell you too, always pay attention to the timing, right? Like here it says, have you by a member of a medical profession within the last 2 years? I had a gentleman years ago, we were doing the phone call. And with me, he said, no, 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 no. And then he thought, I ought to be honest with the underwriter. So he said, the first question, in the last 2 years, have you been advised to receive treatment or medication for angina, which is chest pain, any type of surgery, heart attack, or received a pacemaker? He said, well, I had one 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, the little gal that was there, she just heard yes. And so she clicks yes. And now we got it put through, but I go over it. I go over these health questions 2 or 3 times with them. And my question at the end is, before we call, is there anything on this list that you are hesitant about giving an affirmative no to? And until I can get that, I don't make that phone call.
I'm with you. I do the exact same thing. You have to make sure and drill down that the health conditions that they say that they have are truly what they have, and that they're not taking any extra medications that they haven't told you about. A lot of times, I hate to say it like this, but buyers can be liars. And in that process, they'll get an agent wrapped up with a debt in some cases. They'll put a policy through, and then eventually they'll find out that maybe they don't have the premium, but they don't have the money. There's a lot of things. Clients, you really, as an agent, you do have to do a lot of field underwriting and make sure that your clients are telling as close to the truth as you can ascertain, at least anyway.
I always tell my clients, because the number one thing that people worry about when they buy life insurance is, can this policy not be paid on? I always tell my clients there's only 2 ways that they cannot pay for a policy. Number, if commit suicide, number 2, application, right?
That's
as long as those things don't happen, they have to pay for it, right?
That's
and
right.
So I was telling that. So now another thing too, I always make my clients, I say sorry.
Payment. They also have to make their premium payment. Those are the 3.
That's a big one too. Yeah.
Policy in place. Yes, sir.
I need to change my wording there. As long as it's paid for, you don't lie and you don't commit suicide.
That's right.
Which in Missouri, we even got some weird suicide clause, but I don't even get into that. I just tell them, just don't commit suicide. You'll be good. Now, the other thing too is that I wanted to point out is I always make them bring me the meds, right? And bring me all the meds, because I want to read them off of the label. There are people that know, the guy I was just talking to, he could tell me the name of it, the date he was prescribed, the dosage, but that's a rare case, right? And they'll forget about some too. Another weird thing is, like I'm reading here in part 3, it says, have you by a member of the medical profession ever been diagnosed with or received or been advised to receive treatment for COPD? A lot of people will not consider their inhaler to be medicine, so they won't bring that, so you get to that question. And then, at the end of the medical questions, the underwriter will come back on and say, excuse me, do you take albuterol? And they're
That's
like,
right.
oh yeah, I take that. Which sounds like I need some albuterol right now, but so they just, for some reason in their head, that doesn't click as a medication. So be sure and always ask about those too.
Yeah, and some of those COPD medications are also used for certain levels of asthma. And so they might mention that they take something for asthma, but the carrier might see it as if it's a COPD med. And so they need to make sure that they're very distinctive as far as the health condition that they have whenever they're on the phone call, because sometimes I've seen that wrap some agents up and get them a decline.
Right. So now I did want to jump back up here, up at the top here. There is one of the biggest reasons that I love Liberty Bankers is this right here. And that is the riders. Now you can add on grandchild's term rider, any other riders. Guys, we miss out on a lot of different things when it comes to these. Be asking your clients, hey, do you have any grandkids? What if you could throw on a little term onto that or something like that? Be asking about that stuff. But the biggest one that I always add, I make them tell me, no, don't add it, is the AD&D rider.
That's right.
The AD&D rider, it's going to be a percentage of the premium. And the bad thing about it is you can't really run a AD&D. Well, I know you talk a lot about the Liberty Bankers pre-check phone app. Tell us a little bit about that. We'll come back to this. On that pre-check app, can I run a quote on there?
Yes, you can. On pre-check, the phone app, what you can do is you can run a quote. And I believe if your state offers accidental death, you can also take a look and it'll show you the quote for that too. So Georgia does not offer accidental death, but several other states do. I think Texas is one. So I'm going to look here. Yes, you have to. I mean, the carrier would specifically tell you you can't have it after the fact because the quoter doesn't make you select based off of the state. So it doesn't matter. If you put it in the quote and you try to do accidental death, and you'll write it through. But when you're on the call, I believe the carrier will stop you and say, no, your state doesn't allow it, or they'll put it through if your state does. But you can add it to the quoter. Yes.
Yeah. So guys, what he's talking about here, there's a Liberty Bankers pre-check phone application. And it's an application that you can get even before you're appointed with Liberty Bankers. And it will allow you to look up, prescriptions. It allows you to look up some of the underwriting stuff. It also allows you to run a quote. And on that quote, you can throw that AD&D rider onto there. Usually costs anywhere from $3 to $5. But what it does, it doubles the death benefit in the event of an accident is the biggest thing. I was with a gentleman here. I was with another agent. We go out and see a gentleman and he wanted a big $50,000 policy. Well, we looked at GULs, we looked at terms, and it was just too expensive because a GUL for him at $50,000 was going to be over $300 a month. So I asked him, I said, so what is your big concern? Tell me why you want $50,000. He said, I'm still working. I work in a warehouse. And if I die, it's probably going to be due to an accident. So I said, what if I could do this? What if I could sell you a $25,000 policy? We throw the accidental rider on there. That would make it a $50,000 in the event of an accident. And it was $140 a month. And he'd love that, So it just gives you that option. And not only that, guys, when you do that, when somebody else comes along to try to replace your policy, it gives you an extra benefit that's hard to replace.
That's right. Yeah. Any feature that you can add on to a policy that makes it harder for another agent to come by and replace later is going to be something that's going to help you maintain persistency. Liberty Bankers Life is a carrier that's actually really big on persistency. They actually will bonus you on top of your bonus. So the better you are as far as keeping your policies on the books, the more money they'll give you on your renewal bonus. So it's an excellent carrier, and persistency is something to really, really keep in mind.
Awesome. Another thing I like here too. So they'll ask you if you're in a state where even if you forgot to quote the accident rider, if you're in a state where they offer it, they will say, are there any riders? Do you want to add the accidental death rider? Are there any riders? At that time, you can add it on the phone call. And then down here, another thing that I like is they have the Social Security billing. Now they will not pull the premium out of a Direct Express account, like off a MasterCard. There's very, very few that do. And to do that anyway, that's a good way to get a policy canceled down the road. But they will say, would you like this to correspond with Social Security? Kind of go over what they're talking about there, Tibbett, if you don't mind.
So what they're doing there is they're talking about first, second, and third Wednesdays. You can select the date whenever your check normally hits the account, whenever the client's check would normally hit the account. And in those cases, what they're doing is they're just basically hitting it the same time that you're telling them that it's supposed to hit. It doesn't actually take it out at the moment that it gets there. There is a slight delay, but it is super fast. It's almost one of the best ones out there, according to the actual persistency records whenever it comes to these cases, because it's a trackable data point that you can watch that shows that they take it out at the right time.
Yeah. And that's the reason that's so important, guys. Unfortunately, most people that you write final expense on, they live check to check, right? And their biggest fear is, what if my Liberty Bank, because typically in the past, you would have to do some math. I would always ask you, what day do you get paid, right? And here's the deal. I want to be first in line. When they get paid, if they get paid on the 15th, I want to have it taken out on the 15th, because usually by the 17th, their money's gone, right? So What with this though, what they would always worry about is, well, I don't get paid till the third Wednesday of the month. So I would always do the math and I would say, okay, that means that you could never get paid. 3 times 7 is 21. You'll never get paid before the 21st or after the 21st, right? So let's just do the 21st. Well, with this, if it's the second Wednesday of the month, they are guaranteeing that their Social Security will always be in there before their premium comes out. And that really helps to dispel the worry that that client may have, right? So their biggest concern is they get overdrawn, then they got that $25 fee for everything that's overdrawn and all that. So, but then we go down through here. You want to get the beneficiary's information, the contingent beneficiary. And if you guys have ever heard me talk about how I sell final expense, the beneficiary is one of the first things that I ask, because the beneficiary is who they love the most in this world, right? Then we continue down. One thing, it says right there, at the time of the interview, they will ask to speak or they will ask for the information about the personal physician. So if you can get that ahead of time, that really helps speed along the process. You do the phone, or I'm sorry, you do the questions, and then here is all the riders information if you want to put riders on there. And then here's the premium payment. Now, one of the first things that they'll ask you on the phone is, do you have the premium payment information, the checking account information? If you don't, they won't proceed. They'll tell you, call us back when you have it, correct?
Yes. You have to have all the checking information or savings account information and their Social Security number before you place the phone call. They will not continue the call if you do not have that.
Right. And
It's
so now,
HIPAA. In the disclosures, in the very last 2 pages, there's the accidental death, the dismemberment disclosure, and then there's the HIPAA disclosure, which is that one right there. That disclosure, there's a couple of statements in there that actually mention Social Security number and checking account. And that's the best time, because you have to read that to your client. That's the best time to actually get those numbers. Wait until the end of the conversation. They're saying, yes, I do want to go ahead and get some insurance. Then you have to say, all right, there's a little bit of legal that I have to go through real quick. And this is through HIPAA. I can either email this to you right now, and I'd print it off and scan it and then send it over if they had an email address, or I can read it to you right now. And then if you read it to them, basically in the section where it says I have to, where they're talking about Social Security and banking, that's where you ask them for that information. Now, if you email it to them, you still want to go over that with them, because you do have to give that to the carrier. They don't want the client giving it to them for some reason. It's a little sticky.
Yeah. And they're going to ask you guys on this, they're going to ask you, and they're going to ask the client, have you read the important information, the HIPAA authorization, all that stuff? So be sure and read all this to them. And there's the accelerated death benefit rider, payment rider disclosure. So that's about it. But one other thing too, guys, what I do is I have this out from the beginning, right? As I even start talking to them about it, what made you start thinking about life insurance, yada, yada, yada. The reason why I like to, if I do the whole thing, right? If I do the whole appointment and I ask them that about their health and all that stuff, and then I pull out the application, that can put a little bit of fear into them, right? Oh, now it's getting real. Now we've got the application out. If I have the application out from the beginning and I've been checking off health questions as I go and all that stuff, it takes away that hesitation when I pull the app out later, so I like to have that out from the beginning. So
yeah,
but then
you have it out in the front part, and you sort of conversationally, while you're asking them and getting to know them a little bit, ask them some of those questions. And yes, it totally takes every bit of the intimidation factor of the whole process out of the way, because you're just talking to them and answering questions at the same time, and just being more their advisor and sort of trying to teach them about insurance. It's a much easier way to do it.
Yeah, it's an easier process. And then the last thing I'll say is, guys, so let's kind of talk about, so you've got everything's on the paper, you fully filled it out. Now we're going to make the phone call. I always get them ahead of time. Okay, we're getting ready to make the phone call. Here's what's going to happen. They're going to talk to me. They're going to ask me all your basic information. Then they're going to ask to speak with you. I'm going to hand you the phone. And again, you cannot, once you hand them that phone, you cannot coach. You can't sit there and say, no, don't answer. If they hear you, I had an agent, we learned this the hard way. If they hear you in the background saying, no, you can't answer that, or he said this, or she said that, they're going to decline the application, right?
That is
So they're,
correct.
yeah.
They changed their process up just a little bit. I don't mean to correct you.
Well, you're good.
What they've done is they've actually done it so that whenever you first make the phone call, they ask the agent to identify himself, name and your agent code or the last four of your social security number if it's your first case. And then they ask you if you read your client, the disclosures. They'll ask you if this is a new policy or if it's a redate. And then once you've answered all that, then they'll say, okay, I want to talk to your client. So they don't ask any other information about the client until after they've asked them all the health questions, because they want to go through. It makes it so that if there's going to be, if the client has a decline, after they've done through MIB and whatnot, the call's only about 12 and a half to maybe 15 minutes. Now, if it is an approved call and they come back on the line after being on hold for a second, checking MIB and script history, then what they'll do is that's when the agent has to give them all of the pertinent information on the client, address, phone number, that stuff.
I like that.
If decline, it's a quick call, but if it's approved, then yes, it takes a teeny bit longer.
Yeah, no, that's great. I like that. So, because there's no reason to collect the information if it's going to be a declined application.
That's correct. Yes, sir.
That's perfect. So, but then they're going to tell you, yes, they'll say, congratulations. You can, you're, what's the wording? Tentatively approved for preferred or standard, or I know there's a wording in there.
They're not tentative. They say, congratulations, you are approved. Once they're approved on the phone, you're done. There's not going to be any other underwriting decision. There's not going to be another look. Unless that something happens within the first 2 years that changes and causes them to take a look.
Right. So, all right, man. And that's it, guys. And let me tell you guys, this is a way I always tell people, I love selling insurance. And I'm telling you guys, if my car broke down tomorrow and I needed a new transmission, and I had to have $3,000, this is where I would go. I would start knocking doors and talking about final expense. It's the quickest way to earn great money very, very quickly.
I agree completely.
So, anything else we need to add on to this?
No. I want to actually circle back just a teeny bit on the LBL pre-check part.
Okay.
The LBL pre-check, it's the cell phone app that you can get through your smartphone's app store, and it'll give you an underwriting decision with the help of the app itself, the paperless application worksheet, and the build chart. Between the three of them, you get rates. You can find out the health classification of your client, and then you can also check to see how the medications are treated over there at the carrier, all just with the palm of your hand. If you happen to be in person with your client, there's a third box in their app called UW Check. And what they want you to do there, and it only works if you're in person, they want you to take a photograph of the front and the back of the client's driver's license, and then they want you to take a selfie with them so that they know that you're together, and then send it to the carrier. The carrier, it takes about 4 or 5 minutes, and they will give you an underwriting decision. They give you a little code. Do the code, give them the code whenever you're calling the carrier, do a voice signature at that point. So it's a very easy process. Also, once you're done with your first phone app, you have access to their website. And then you can do e-apps. They also have a voice signature process on the e-app. So if your client doesn't have an email address, but they want to do e-app, so you can go through that e-app process. It's a 3-minute voice signature phone call. At the end of that, they give you a little number. You put it back in the code and send it off to the carrier. It's really easy. It makes it so that you can submit without any problems at all.
Well, and guys, I've said it 100 times. If you want to get ahead writing final expense, as soon as you get that link to your website, get to know that portal. there. You want to find a rate chart, it's in there. You want to find prescription drug history or prescription drug checklist, it's in there. So really get to know that portal, and that'll really help you out. So yeah, but all great stuff. Guys, they've taken away all the excuses as to why you can't write more final expense. And so get out there and just write the mess out of it. So, well, Tibbett, man, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you visiting with us, and hopefully this answers any questions. Guys, if you need anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Tibbett, and we'd be happy to help you get writing more stuff. Anything we're missing, Tibbett?
No, not today. I think we've covered pretty much everything we need to.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. And guys, have a great week. If we can do anything, please let us know.